Alright guys, for this lecture we're going to go over the actual process of subnetting. And before we get into it, one thing I want to make sure we discuss is CIDR notation, classless interdomain routing, CIDR. So a lot of times with these subnetting questions, you'll see it in one of two ways. The way we're probably most familiar with is we're given an IP address and we're given a subnet mask like this. But on the tests, especially those tests given by Cisco, you will see this number represented like this, /24. And the only thing that you guys need to make sure you understand with these CIDR notations is this number means the number of ones I have in my subnet mask. So when we were looking, once again, I'm going to jump ahead and assume that you guys watch the videos on binary to decimal. If I have 24 as my CIDR notation, that essentially means I have 24 ones, 24 bits turned on in my subnet mask. So if I were to count that out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So kind of got cut off there, but zeros after that. And if I were to do the binary to decimal conversion, so the process is exactly the same. So that number, that slash number, whatever you see after that, that means the number of ones in your subnet mask. So we'll go ahead and use that and kind of build on it from here. So hopefully you guys have printed out your subnetting cheat sheet. I went ahead and kind of drew it up here very quickly just to explain it, to make sure that we understand exactly what it is. The values up here are our traditional binary values. The numbers down here represent the subnet masks that we're going to go ahead and use. So this is based on the concept of using check marks. And once again, I'm including this video because this is the method I like. There are 50 different ways to do subnetting. Whichever one works best for you, that's the one you should roll with. This is the method I prefer. It's never done me wrong, and it actually does a very good job. So let's say I want to go ahead and completely subnet out an IP address with a subnet mask. So let's just use that example of 192.168.10.0/25. So remember that 25 means the number of bits I have turned on. So this cheat sheet is based on the concept of using those check marks. So if I want to find out my block size, that's going to be the numbers up here. The block size is the chunks, so to speak. This gives me my subnet mask. So I'll use kind of two check marks to make sure we understand. So when I look at the number 25, I'm looking at how many bits are turned on in the last octet. So let's just write that out really quick, even though we just did it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 8, 16, 24. Sorry, the blue didn't show up as well as I thought it would. I need to get to 25, so that's 1. That 1 becomes my check mark. So I check across 1 for 128, and I check down 1 for 128 as well. So I'm going to go in block sizes of 128 until I hit the maximum value of 128. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw out my little chart. First, last, broadcast. So that's essentially what I'm trying to find when I'm doing the subnetting. The first address, the last address, and the broadcast. Now there's going to be one more column I'm going to add over here. This is going to be the network column. So remember, when we're subnetting, I'm concerned with this last octet. I don't care what the prefix is, so that's the numbers I'm going to use. So I'm going to go in chunks or block sizes of 128 until I hit this value starting with 0. So my first network is going to be 0. I add 128 to 0. My next network is 128. Now I've hit my value, but remember, our networks can range from 0 to 128. So I'm going to draw this in here just for explanation purposes as 255, because that's technically our last network that we can use. Because remember, binary values can go from 0 to 255. So I take this and I'm just going to subnet it out. And remember this process. First, broadcast last. First, broadcast last. First, broadcast last. To find the first host address in this network, I add 1 to the network address. So 0 plus 1 is 1. To find the broadcast address, I subtract 1 from the next network. So 128 minus 1 is 127. To find the last host address, I subtract 1 from the broadcast, 126. So my very first network has been completely subnetted out. The address is .0. The first usable host address is 1. The last usable address is 126. The broadcast address for this network is 127. So just to finish out this process, same process. First, broadcast last. First, broadcast last. To find the first address, I add 1 to 128. Gives me 129. Subtract 1 from the next network to get the broadcast. So 255 minus 1 is 255. All right, and just to finish this out, subtract 1 from the broadcast to get the last host is 253. So a lot of times you guys will see questions on the exam saying what network is this host on, what is the network address, what is the first usable host address on a particular network. So if we were just to change this really quick and just kind of use those as an example. So a question you would see is, what network is 192.168.10.24 on using a CIDR notation of 25? So once you already have it subnetted out, you just look at 24 is between 1 and 126. So that address is on the .0 network. Just to use another example, let's pretend they ask you what network is .147 on. 147 is between 129 and 253, so that is on the 128 network. So we'll practice with this heavily. Once again, there's lots of games and websites that we can use for this. This is just one example using the subnetting cheat sheet so that you guys can kind of refer back to it. So remember, across represents your block size, the chunk sizes of your network. Down represents your subnet mask. You use the check marks based on the number of bits in the last octet. So if we were just to do, let's say it was /26, I would go here, do 2 check marks, and this would become my block size. This would become my subnet mask. So we'll practice with this. This is just here for you guys to refer back to if you're like, well, what do we do with the subnetting cheat sheet? So go ahead and use this as you see fit. Talk to you guys soon.